What's going on, guys? Ryan again with RPK Customs. We're obviously out in my shop today. I've been getting a lot of questions on Facebook and Instagram about lathes and what to look for when you're buying a lathe. So this video is going to be about lathes and specifically for the lightsaber community, making lightsabers on these lathes and what you want in a lathe that will help you make lightsabers a little bit more easy. So I'm going to flip the camera around and point it directly at the lathe, and then we're going to go over just some of the details you want to look for. I have a list of bullet points here that I want to go over. So I'll flip the camera around and we'll get started. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is determine what size you're going to need, and that depends on what you are planning on doing with it, what you're planning on doing in the hobby. You can see that I have a pommel right there just to kind of give you a size comparison to everything else. So, if you're just going to be machining or turning down glass eyes, machining thumb screws, greeblies, things of that nature, you're not going to need a big lathe or a lathe as big as this one. You can get away with having something on the smaller side. I would always recommend going up at least one or two sizes than what you think you would need, just because you're always going to be growing and expanding your skills, and you're going to want to grow with your machine. If you have a small machine, that's an automatic restriction on what you're going to be able to do. If you get a small machine, you're always going to be stuck with just machining things like thumb screws and greeblies. So I recommend going up at least one or two sizes. Now, I would highly discourage you, if you are thinking about just getting a machine to modify, say, glass eyes or making thumb screws, things of that nature, I would highly discourage you from getting one of the cheap Chinese lathes from, say, Harbor Freight or Grizzly or any of those places. They're all mass manufactured in the same factory over in China. They all pretty much use the same parts, and they're all crappy in their own ways. I know, like the Harbor Freight, for instance, they have really muddy indicators here, so it's kind of hard to make an accurate cut. Grizzlies have their own separate issues. Even though this is a Grizzly machine, this one is a lot better quality, and I'll run through everything that makes it better quality here in a minute. Another reason you want to stay away from a small machine is because they're kind of light, and the weight of a machine really matters. When you are making a cut and your machine is light, it's just kind of vibrating or rocking back and forth on a workbench, your cuts are not going to be that smooth, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with sandpaper trying to smooth everything out by hand. It's really not worth it. You can get around that by bolting your machine to the workbench and then bolting the workbench to a concrete floor. That will give you a little bit more stability and make your cuts a little bit smoother. But again, these things they're mass manufactured in China. Your tool post can have a little bit of slop in it. Your cross slides, your ways, nothing is really made to tolerance when it comes to the mass manufacturing of these. Another reason to avoid one of those cheap Chinese lathes is because they typically use plastic gears in the gearbox. And those gears are notorious for shearing teeth off all the time. And if you are in the middle of a commission and you have a tooth shear off and you have to order another gear from, say, littlemachineshop.com, something along those lines, your customer's not going to be that happy that they have to wait an extra 2 weeks because you bought a crappy machine. So you really just want to avoid those little Harbor Freight machines altogether. Now, you can upgrade those machines. I know littlemachineshop.com sells a kit. I'm pretty sure it's a kit that has metal gears, and you can swap out all the plastic gears for metal. But by the time you get done upgrading that machine, you're going to spend just as much money as you would if you just bought a machine that already comes with metal gears, that already comes with quality hardware. So when you're looking at a machine, the number one thing that I always look for is does it have metal gears? If it has metal gears, that means they most likely took the time to, put other quality thought into the machine while they're building it. I've never seen a 7x14 or one of those cheap little Chinese lathes that come with metal gears. There are small machines that do come with metal gears, but they are quite pricey. You would be better off by spending your money on a bigger machine that already has the metal gears for roughly the same price than you would a smaller machine that has metal gears that's a little bit pricey. If you buy a small machine, you're always going to be restricted, and you're going to want to grow, and you're going to want to do, eventually you're going to always want to do bigger projects on that lathe. So keep that in mind. Always buy something a little bit bigger than what you think you're going to need. Another thing to look for is, or another thing I can recommend is buying a used lathe. Now, a used lathe is going to come with a lot of tooling in most circumstances. You're going to have things like drill chucks, cutting tools, things of that nature that if you buy a brand new lathe, you are going to have to spend the money on the tooling separate from the lathe. So, if you have a budget of, say, $1,500, you don't want to put all that $1,500 into the lathe itself, because you're going to have to spend another $200, $300, $400 in tooling to be able to work the lathe. So keep that in mind. If you're in a state like, like a northeastern state, say like Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, those are big machining states. Machining it goes for a lot of money up in these areas. So it's easier to find used machines on places like Marketplace and Craigslist and all that. So, if you're patient, you can find a really good deal. If you buy a brand new machine, you're never going to get your money back for it if you try to resell it. So, just keep that in mind. If you want to buy a brand new machine, it should be something that you can keep and hold on to for a long time and grow with. So if you are in the market for a used machine and you go look at one, some of the things that you are going to want to check out and look for is if the motor is in good condition, if the gearbox is in good condition, if your ways, which are these right here, if that's nice and smooth. So if you can move that back and forth, everything feels nice and smooth. There's no grinding or grit or anything like that in there. That's a good sign. Same thing with your cross slide. Everything up here. If everything's smooth, we're in good shape. Now, as far as the motor and the gears are concerned, I will move the camera over a little bit so you can see. So all machines are pretty much set up like this. You have your stop and start. This is a safety switch. So in order to unlock it, you have to twist it, and that pops it out, and now you're ready to start. So just hit the green button. It should sound nice and smooth. Again, no grinding, no thumping, anything like that. If there's any funny noises coming from inside the gearbox, check the gears. If the gears look good and you still can't pinpoint the sound, it's probably in the motor. Motors, they're just electric motors, so most times you can replace them for pretty cheap. If there is something wrong with the motor, sometimes you can haggle with the seller and get a lathe for a really good price. Just go replace the motor, and you can have a really nice sized lathe in good shape for maybe less than $500. A deal like that, you're just going to have to be patient and wait for something to pop up, though. And I highly discourage you from getting something that is that sounds a little off. You just want everything to be nice and smooth. Smooth motor, smooth gears, smooth ways, smooth cross slide, everything like that. No damage anywhere. So as long as all those things are in order and everything's working good, you're going to be in good shape. So this is a Grizzly G0602. This is a 10 by 22 lathe, and you can see the model number here. You can see the 10 by 22 lathe right there. This is going to be a little bit overkill for pretty much everything in the lightsaber community. That being said, you can make pretty much anything on this lathe. I could make a full saber on this lathe if I want to. And actually, I'm doing a very, very, very small run of lightsabers right now. But you're not going to be able to do a full run of sabers on something like this. Runs of sabers, you're going to want to find a CNC shop somewhere and draw something up in a CAD program. A manual lathe, it takes a long time to machine parts. So machining a run, it's going to take you a year just to make 20, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's really it. These things are pretty simple. There's not much to them. It really just depends on what size you're looking for and, you know, what you're going to be doing with a lathe. Like I said, if you're just going to be making small parts, modifications, you know, you can get away with having something small, but I recommend going with something a little bit bigger so that you can grow into making larger parts. That is a V2 pommel from my old V2 run, so you kind of have an idea of the size of the machine. And the sizing of machines are a little weird, so I'll go over that real quick. This says it's a 10 by 22, but when you measure it from the face of the chuck here to the dead center, I get a measurement of 20 inches. So it's really like a 10 by 20. The smaller lathes are even worse. Those little cheap ones, they're typically like a 7 by 14. Yeah, it's 7 by 4. It says it's 7 by 14, but the maximum size that you're going to want to do is, and I'm just talking in length right now. The width really doesn't matter. You just don't want to go. You don't want to go outside of what the chuck can hold. So in terms of length on those small lathes, you're looking at maybe a workable area of 6 to 8 inches max. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any further questions, just put a comment down in the comments below, or you can shoot me a message on my Facebook or Instagram. If you have any questions on machining something specifically, you can shoot me a message, ask, and I might be able to make a video on that. But yeah, I think that'll about do it. So thanks for watching, guys, and may the force be with you.